everyone, I'm Allie with PotomacBeads, and this episode of Better Beader is hopefully going to answer some questions or give you some solutions if you are working with adhesives. So what do I mean by adhesives? I'm talking glue. Whether or not you're working with super glue, you're working with Gorilla Glue, you're working with Loctite glue or some E6000, I want to give you some solutions for working with glue. We have lots of different products and lots of different things that can be glued, that you might have a ring, say, that has a setting that it's glued in. And what happens when you get a little bit too much gunk or a little bit too much glue around the exterior? Not only talking about glue, but also talking about some resin and some helpful hints to clean off some pieces if you have too much jewelry, how to get it off both the pieces as well as your hands, and kind of what to do with those adhesives to make it easier for the application of them, to make sure you're not using too much or too little as well. So I wanted to go over first what happens and when are you going to kind of getting off adhesives. So some things here, these are just some examples of really old products that we have here at the store, and they have some adhesive onto them. So if you happen to get a cabochon, a piece that has a adhesive on it, sometimes you can pull these off nice and easily, and these will pull off. What happens if you can't? You want to think about the material. I have two different pieces here. I have a really, really light rose quartz and then a piece of amber. So I don't necessarily want to use something like a liquid nail polish remover or anything on those. You can think about Goo Gone, or the first solution is actually to soak them in a little bit of soapy water. Look at whatever material you have, if you have a little bit of that adhesive or gunk, and again, that Goo Gone. A little bit of baking soda sometimes will work along the back, and some white vinegar as well. But keep in mind that there's different materials. Do a little Google search and figure out what is the material that you're working with. If you're working with pearls, you don't want to necessarily use any baking soda and vinegar because it'll break down the outside of that. You can use a little bit of tiny soap and water, soak the product in that to get off that adhesive if you have that on there. Sometimes it'll pull off nicely, like this one here, and you won't have any adhesive left at all. But if you do have some adhesive left on from price tags or stickers or anything like that, go ahead and try the soft method before going in and really kind of scraping at it. If you do have a stone that's pretty hard, like a quartz here, you don't want to scratch up the stone, but you can go in with a beading awl and kind of get underneath, or a little scraper to scrape along the piece when you're working with it. More so getting off the glue kind of on the exterior of the pieces. You can see that sometimes the glue will create like a little bit of a cloudy film. So it doesn't really matter kind of what type of glue you're using. All of them have their downsides. They're also all awesome whether or not you're gluing cabochons into earrings, if you're gluing things into settings. Again, they're all going to have kind of their negatives and positives. Some of the different glues, as you're working with them, might have a little bit of a white film that ends up happening to the exterior of the piece. Whether or not that's a clasp and a closure, like I've done recently, where I had a crystal Rivoli and I actually got a bunch of glue on the exterior of the crystal Rivoli. We were able to, because it is glass and the silver is on the bottom, take some nail polish remover with a nice soft cloth and actually get that off the actual stone. Keep in mind metal, you want to think about what the metal is and go with the easiest possibility to get something off prior to. I have a polishing cloth here because sometimes that white film is just basically a residue that is along the sides of the glue and kind of those chemicals just reacting with the piece. So go ahead and try a polishing cloth first to get off any of that residue that you might have on there. If you have any residue actually on any glass beads that do not have a coating on them, you can go ahead and try that nail polish remover technique and method. Like that also, you can sometimes use, this is just from the first aid kit, a first aid kit or an antiseptic wipe that's going to have some rubbing alcohol on it. That will also often take the glue off when you are looking at some of those. Some of the glues, rather than being an actual kind of super glue style where again they have a little bit of that white clouding effect that can happen a little bit, are going to be more of a resin type. The E6000 actually kind of gels up And it's really, really nice, again, to have one of these little awls on hand, because around the exterior, if you are using the E6000, you can kind of pick off and actually use your finger to rub the glue as it's drying. You can get the glue easily off of your fingers by soaking in a solution of a little bit of dish soap and water. You can also usually kind of move your fingers back and forth and ball up the extra little resin or the glue that way. If you happen to get the super new glue or the super glue, that Loctite glue, onto your fingers, what do you do? It's one thing to get it on the piece of jewelry, it's another thing to get it off the onto your fingers. I glue my fingers together kind of constantly. It's a constant thing. So I would suggest, if you are getting glue on your fingers, one, you want to change the technique that you're using to apply the glue. And two, think about kind of what the glue is made up of, and then search for solutions and answers. Soak in some warm water. That usually is going to be the first result that's going to get the best kind of first start to that. You don't want to pull apart fingers right away if you happen to glue them, because you can kind of pull the skin, and that's terrible even sounding. But soak in a warm solution of usually dish soap. You can even do some baking soda and vinegar as well to break that down. You can also, if you don't have skin that's too sensitive, use that nail polish remover, which with the green screen you can't really see, but with that nail polish remover you can use that as an option as well. It has that acetate in it, which will kind of dissolve and eat away at that super glue. Same thing if you do use any of the Protect-A-Clear or the any sort of nail polish for anything when it comes to allergies. Check out the nail polish as an option too, to get that off the surface. But what was I saying about getting off the nail polish from your hands or getting off the super glue from your hands? Think about the way that you're applying. So if I have a small piece here, especially if I have something that I'm using, say, the Potomac ovals for, it's a small surface that I'm going to be using the glue and the adhesive. I don't necessarily want to go in and squeeze the E6000 glue right onto here, because the application is going to be a little bit thick. Keep in mind that you can also have another awl handy that you can use to dip into a little pile of glue, apply on. You can also use an old nail polish brush to just kind of paint on, as well as you want to make sure that you're not using and overflowing the amount, that you could use a toothpick or a Q-tip to help you out to apply the glue. Some of the glues are going to have really, really nice thin tops, and I would suggest taking always whatever you're working on, and whether or not you're working kind of with a clear plastic bag or a piece of tin foil, and testing out the glue and the flow of the glue and how it comes out prior to using it. So that way you don't have to do some of these solutions or some of these solvents in order to get the glue off the exterior of the piece. Again, if you are using a crystal, keep in mind you can use, as long as it doesn't have that exterior coating, you can use a nail polish remover or the alcohol wipes to get them actually off the piece. The first solution I would always recommend is to try a polishing cloth like this Shine Right polishing cloth, because it's not going to affect and hurt a lot of the different metals. It's always nice to do a little bit of research, whether or not that's a Google search or actually searching the product itself to see what the solutions are for glue and getting that off. The number one thing I think more so is the application process and how you are getting the glue onto the piece. Whether or not you're using kind of super new glue to glue two ends of stretchy string together versus say an E6000 glue to bond two pieces of metal together. Think about the uses, how you're going to control the glue that you're working with. Look at the dry time so that way you don't affect kind of sticking your fingers together, and also work with it in a small surface area where you're not going to by accident glue it to the surface that you're working on, which I have done multiple times, and I know there's some of you out there laughing and chuckling along with me because you too have glued a bracelet or a thread to your fingers or to your bead mat, which is very sad when you do that. But with all of these different adhesives, some of them are amazing to work with. Unfortunately, some of them do have that overspill that you just can't control sometimes, as well as that cloud that may go along it. Try first with that polishing cloth, then go in with a warm kind of soap and water. That Goo Gone will get out the sticker kind of formation from the back of those stickers, some of that glue that may stick on from price tags. And then always, if you have to, kind of go into that last option of the nail polish remover. Keep in mind that things that are coated or things that have a finish on top of them, may be affected by some of those materials. Also, some of the different gemstones are going to have different kind of strengths along that mole scale and the hardness, and whether or not you want to use certain solutions with others. I've actually done a couple of different episodes on the cleaning of products and the cleaning of jewelry, and keep in mind getting off and using a lot of the adhesives is similar to that as well. This is one of those great Better Beader episodes that I think hopefully should have tons of comments below in the description showing and sharing all of your tips for working with the different adhesives, how to solve those adhesive issues, whether or not you get it on your fingers or kind of have it along and gunk on the piece, or even if you get it on top of the stones or the things that you're gluing on. Comment below the video so that way you can help out the beading community and help others that may be running into some of these same situations. As always with this YouTube channel, I encourage you to subscribe, give a little thumbs up, and again, comment below so that way we grow this awesome, awesome craft. As always with these Better Beader episodes, hopefully you found it helpful, hopefully you learned something, and keep an eye on the future for those Better Beader episodes by subscribing. As always, if you need any materials, want to try out any glue, need any polishing cloths, or any supplies, you can visit us at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Happy gluing, everyone, and adhesive safety is very important.